Well, hello everyone and welcome to the Econobox garage. If you watched the previous video, you'll remember that I messed up the housing for the 25D distributor by getting a screw and a drill bit stuck in one of the holes, and I switched all the innards over to the housing for the 948. So one of my viewers has been kind enough to send me a replacement 25D distributor that I'm going to use instead of the one I put on the car. I'd like to thank Ash from the Heirloom Austin YouTube channel for sending me this. So I'll put a link to his channel in the description below so you can go and check out his Bugeye restoration as well. The goal for this episode is to get all the electrical wrapped up. So thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoy this episode. Well, here's the generator or dynamo that I rebuilt in an earlier video, and I'll put a link to that one up above. So there's 3 mounting points on this. There's the 2 on the top here and 1 underneath. Then the 2 on top go in front of this bracket here, this one here, and then the one on the bottom mounts to this bracket here, and then this bracket here slides back and forth, and that gives the adjustment to be able to tighten up the fan belt. And then you'll see on the back here, this is where the tack cable screws in. I've just got that on there loosely for now. That's driven off the end of the shaft, the main shaft in here, and little reduction gears in here, and then off to the tachometer. And I've got it all mounted into place. I just got to get the belt now onto the bottom pulley and the top pulley, and I'm going to check to make sure that this pulley here is lining up properly with the fan pulley and the crank pulley. I'm actually just going to use the battery hold down clamp because it's skinny enough to get in here. And as I suspected, we're off a little bit. So what I'm going to do is put a washer. You probably can't see it because of the radiator hose. You can put a washer between the housing on the generator and the mounting block there, and it doesn't look like it's going to need that much of a washer. So there we have the generator in place, and then you can see just down in here is where I put that extra washer in to move the generator forward, and the pulleys are now lined up nice and straight. So that's that fixed. We got this bolt's all tightened up, this bracket's all tightened up, this bolt here is tightened up, and the one down right there, the 9/16, that's all tightened up. So the generator is securely in place. So now I'm going to hook up the tachometer cable to the tach drive, see where it is most comfortable, then I can tighten this up, and we're good to go on that part. And there we have the tach drive all hooked up. So this is the most relaxed path for the cable, so that's how I oriented the drive. So this connection is snugged up, as is this one. You need to be careful not to over tighten these, otherwise you end up damaging the housing. So now that those are all in, I can finish up the wiring on this side of things. So next to be installed is the coil. Now I picked up a new one from Moss Motors, and it comes complete with the bracket, and I've just saved the hardware from the original one. So I'm just going to get that in now, and then I'll get the wiring hooked up with that, the distributor, and the generator. Well, there we have the coil in place. I just cleaned up the original bolts that held the old one on. I used it with the new bracket and that. Now because this is pointing down, it was going to be hard to read which post was negative or positive, so I just put a mark on the rim here where I could see it. So you can see the negative there and the positive there. So when I go to wire it up, I know which terminal is which. So I now have the generator hooked up with the two wires that go to it. There's a smaller terminal here and a larger one below it. I had to change the connector for the distributor, and I've got the two wires hooked up on the coil as well. The Bugeye Sprites were originally a positive ground, but I'm switching it to negative ground. So I've switched the two wires on the coil accordingly so that the get the best efficiency in the spark. Well, not only do I have the coil wired, I decided to pick up a new fuse block just to make sure that my connections were all good, because with everything else being replaced, I didn't really want to have a weak link in the system. This even has little holders for the spare fuses. The other thing I changed a little bit is I routed the wires that go to this side of the fuse block underneath. I think that looks much tidier than what I had it before, and I'll just put a little picture of what it was before up in the corner here. One of the things I'm going to do to tidy up or finish off the wiring is replace the relay that I originally installed for the horn with one that has a fuse built in. The wiring hookup will all still be the same. The power supply will go to terminal 30. You can see the numbers on there. So the power supply will go to terminal 30. 87 will be the power through to the horn. And then 85 and 86 terminals will have the original horn wiring to it. So there we have the new relay in place with a fuse, so that way the horn is essentially completely isolated from the main part of the circuit on the Bugeye. It has its own power wire, has its own fuse, has its own ground wire, because the red wire here runs all the way back to the battery and into the relay. So I'm going to call that a wrap for the wiring. Other than the spark plug cables and the battery cables, but I already have those. It's just a matter of getting them installed. And I do have a new battery, or a rebuilt battery, but I'll tell you about that a bit later. Well, that's a wrap for this episode. Thanks for joining me. Now that the electrical's all wrapped up, I can get to work on the interior. So in the next video, start working on the interior panels. I'd just like to say thanks to all of you who have supported the channel, either by subscribing, leaving comments, hitting that super thanks, or picking up some merchandise like t-shirts and the like. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to share it with your friends, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and don't forget that little bell icon. Click on that and you'll get notified when the next video comes out. If you'd like to get a hold of me directly, you can do so at the email address I'll put at the bottom of the screen and in the description below. My name is Ian. This is the Econobox Garage. We'll see you next time.